for 50 to 55, I think. Inshallah, we can have a we can have from 50 to 55, inshallah.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. وإلى آد أخاهم هودا قال يا قوم اعبدوا الله ما لكم من إله غيره.
Different Sura?
Yunus.
50, so 56 you can do it.
محمد وآل محمد صلى الله
بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل أرأيتم إن أتاكم عذابه بياتا أو نهارا ماذا يستعجل منه ثم إذا وقع أنتم به الآن وكنتم به تستعجلون ثم قيل للذين ظلموا ذوقوا العذاب الغفور هل تجزون إلا بما كنتم تعملون يستنبئونك أحب قل إي وربي إنه لحق وما أنتم بمعجزين ولو أن لكل نفس ظلمت ما في الأرض أفسدت به وأسروا الندامة لهم بالعطاء وقضي بينهم بالقسط وهم لا يظلمون ألا إن لله ما في السماوات والأرض ألا إن وعد الله حق ولكن أكثرهم لا يعلمون هو يحيي ويميت وإليه ترجعون
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، صلى الله وسلم على سيدنا ونبينا محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. Once again, we thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the opportunity to be sitting, reciting and reflecting on the ayat of the Holy Quran. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept from us and make us amongst the knowledgeable servants, inshallah. The ilm is in the Quran. Every knowledge is in the Quran. Reflection on the ayat of the Holy Quran is the key to all sciences and knowledge. The Surah, again, Surah Yunus, we said it is a surah that is revealed in Mecca, dealing with the core principles of Islam. The reminders in this surah about God as the creator and the sustainer and the maintainer, the one who's in control of everything in the universe, and his messenger and the message, Quran being the message of God, and the guidance being through the Quran, not through their cultures and their cultural beliefs and traditions, and also giving many, obviously, reference to Akhirah. In these chapters you'll find reference to Akhirah, resurrection, confirming resurrection, And you'll also find in Makki surahs references to responses to the questions that often people ask. Questioning, for example, the possibility of prophethood. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives responses to those. Questioning the possibility of revelation. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives responses to that. Questioning the possibility of God intervening and changing the circumstances of the people, in some cases rewarding, in other cases punishing certain people in this world. And this is also responded to in these ayat. In fact, this section of the surah has some of those responses. People think, as some ayat in the Holy Quran give a reference to that وَمَا يُهْلِكُنَا إِلَّا الدَّهْرِ. They say nothing destroys us except time, or this universe. Dahr referring to time and universe, this world that we're living in. We live through it, we died in it. Mother Nature, it by itself somehow came to exist from nothing and somehow evolved into what it is, and it's just continuing, and one day it will somehow finish. For individuals, life finishes, and nature will start having collapse of matter and so on, and it's all nature. There's no intervention and so on. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala responds to those fallacies and gives the haqq, the truth about it, in such chapters, including this surah and the ayat that we are up to. Often people ask, متى هذا الوعد إن كنتم صادقين? When is this promise? He keeps saying, if we do the wrong thing, if we disobey God, if we don't listen, something's going to happen. When is it? Where is it? Everything goes as usual. They attribute everything to nature. And even nowadays, they found, okay, an earthquake happens because of so and so. Some layers of earth have movements, and these tectonic, I think, movements somehow cause these earthquakes. I don't know, the volcanoes happen because of so and so. Different things. We understand all this, but to take the hand of God out of the equation is the wrong understanding or the wrong perception, because just like He protects us on a daily basis from simple things that could happen to us, and I've mentioned before examples of diseases that are within us, the cancerous cells that live in our body and the body discards of them very often, could go out of control and become an issue for somebody. May Allah protect mu'mineen and mu'minat. On the other hand, for many people, they are surviving them. Now, the fact that He is protecting us through our natural systems that are within us doesn't mean that He's not there. Okay? And if we reflect properly, we will realize that this complicated system that we are living in our own body, and obviously the systems around us, around our physical body, in terms of the world that we're living in, the cycles of life, the hydrologic cycle of water, and so on. All of these things could not just happen by accidents or a series of accidents. So if we look at the Khaliq, which they acknowledge, because whenever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would pose this question through His messenger to them, that man khalaqa as-samawati wa la in sa'altahum, if you ask them who created the heavens and the earth, they say la yaqulunna Allah. They acknowledge any intellectual person. Even this debate between scientists and the church and so on, the university and the church, that happened was a misunderstanding, because the church was limited in their acceptance of scientific findings, and therefore they started having this clash. And on the other hand, the scientists stopped accepting anything from the church at some point. And so they tried to find alternative explanations for the existence, including, the theories of how did life come about, how did the universe come, and so on. They started researching alternatives initially. In the process, they did some good in the sense that they explained a lot of the things that we did not fully understand prior to their findings. At the same time, at some point, it was seen as a clash. If you believe in evolution, therefore you don't believe in creation. But that's not how it has to be. Evolution is part of the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we have reference to that in the Holy Quran. We have reference to that in the hadith of the Prophet and Ahlul Bayt salawatullah wasalam alayhim ajma'in. If we go back to the base where people who did not want to adhere to the religion brought by prophets, the religion of God, and they defied their prophets, it was not because they denied the creator or they denied a deity, God, a creator, a super power, a supreme being above our own universe. No, they believed in all of that. They were looking for a God in the universe. Sometimes they thought it's the sun. Other times they assumed it's the moon. Other times other things. So they believed in that. Their issue was their denial of the prophets and the prophecy of the prophets and the laws, the laws that were brought by the prophets, which contradicted their way of life. And therefore, the responses came about that. So you say to us, "Mata hadha al-wa'du in kuntum sadiqin." They say, you say that there's going to be a consequence for your actions. Ya Rasulullah, you say your way of life is leading to some horrible things that could happen, disasters that could occur. Where is it? Show us. So sometimes Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells people, go look at previous nations. Other times, because they've already they've heard about previous nations, but they don't feel it. It's not tangible. He gives them other methods. So we'll come to these ayat. Again, ayah 50, قُلْ أَرَأَيْتُمْ إِنْ أَتَاكُمْ عَذَابُهُ بَيَاتًا أَوْ نَهَارًا مَاذَا يَسْتَعْجِلُ مِنْهُ الْمُجْرِمُونَ. So they ask, bring, وَيَقُولُونَ مَتَى هَذَا الْوَعْدِ, ayah 48. Bring on the punishment. Where is it? They keep saying, where is it? Bring it on. يَسْتَعْجِلُونَ is basically saying, let it come quicker. عَجَلَ is quick. The ajal is to do things hastily. Sorry, you wanted to, yeah. So hastily or quick, that kind of manner of doing things quicker and without too much pausing and hesitation. So they're asking for it to happen. And first he says, قُلْ لَا أَمْلِكُ لِنَفْسِي ضَرًّا وَلَا نَفْعًا إِلَّا مَا شَاءَ اللَّهُ. We said that I cannot bring harm to myself or I cannot bring benefit for myself except when God wills. This is important for those who say, he cannot even do anything for himself. How could he help us? How could he do shafa'ah for us? How could he ask God for a good thing to happen for us or to protect us from bad things? He declared, إِلَّا مَا شَاءَ اللَّهُ. So even I can, not just the Prophet, I can bring harm to myself and I can bring benefits to myself if God wills. If God does not will, I cannot. Even if I try, I cannot. I may intend to and have full intention and decision, strong decision, and I cannot. But if God wills, then I can. And similarly, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam And then he says things have timings. And when the time comes, then there's no delay. There's no bringing it forward or delaying it further. Then he says, this is the response that is important as a reminder, basically trying to make some sense or put, some sense in their head. Basically think. Now you're asking for it to come. قُلْ أَرَأَيْتُمْ, if it did come, that adab that I'm warning you about, if it did come, what would you do? Are you prepared for it? ماذا يستعجل منه المجرمون? If you are being a criminal, if you are being a sinful person, disobedient person, how dare you ask for it to come if it did come? And then how does it come? Comes bayatan aw naharan. Amazing. Bayatan referring to night. But why bayatan, not laylan? In other ayat, this is explained. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says about also the punishment, وَهُمْ نَائِمُونَ. If the punishment comes at night while they are asleep, or if it comes during the day, وَهُمْ يَلْعَبُونَ. Okay? Playing in here is basically busy doing worldly things. This is all la'ab. Hayatul dunya, la'ab. Yeah? Okay, going for after their lively things. Okay, I had an issue with my car. Now I have to go and deal with the car and insurance and all of this, all worldly things. This is the nahar, and the night asleep. So what is it? It is a state of absent-mindedness, of a sudden thing that could happen that changes all the equations. If something bigger happens, when we look at the things happening in the bigger scheme, little things that we do is la'ab. Going after our, livelihood and sustenance is la'ab. Especially when it becomes, when we are dealing with life-threatening situation. Imagine a disaster happened. Remember back in the day when COVID came, how things changed? A lot of perspectives changed. People started seeing things differently. Certain things became very insignificant. Other things became more significant. We put a lot of things on hold. And it didn't matter at that point if the economy is no longer growing. For economists and the world, the system, it's all about the economy growing. At that point, everything's put on hold. Why? Because now we have a life-threatening situation. China's factories closed, and it affected the prices eventually. We thought things would go down. Things went up. The equation is completely changed. But the fact of the matter is, when something bigger happens, a life-threatening situation occurs, then all of this becomes la'ab. And we're going about it in our daily life, or lives collectively, as if this is what's significant, unless that bigger thing occurs. So he says, أَرَأَيْتُمْ قُلْ أَرَأَيْتُمْ, if this punishment came, bayatan, you're asleep at night, absent-minded, not even thinking that something could happen. How often do we hear of people, maybe some of you may have experienced this, you sleep at night, everything was okay, all of a sudden, you wake up to a disaster. Okay, you have to evacuate, run, or one ends up in the hospital. One of our own community members and brothers slept, everything was fine. Before Fajr, he was in the hospital in a coma. Bayatan. Now, I'm not saying that that's necessarily a punishment, but no, that's not what I'm suggesting. But things that could change. What if a punishment comes to you while you're asleep? Or during the day? How naharan? Now, naharan here, it doesn't give that reference to the playing, but if you put those things together, the bayatan and naharan, and the other ayah referring to layl being wahum na'imun and day being wahum yal'abun, it is actually a reference of it coming when we're not expecting it, least expecting it, not prepared for it, absent-minded of it, completely heedless and neglectful. All of a sudden something happens. So he says, قُلْ أَرَأَيْتُمْ إِنْ أَتَاكُمْ عَذَابُهُ بَيَاتًا أَوْ نَهَارًا مَاذَا يَسْتَعْجِلُ مِنْهُ الْمُجْرِمُونَ. Put yourself in that position. Now, taking us to that situation, describing it, giving the possibilities, bayatan aw naharan. In other words, go to that position and it's coming. Do you really want it to come? Are you really asking for it to come quicker? Are you prepared to face that situation and your punishment? وَالْعَيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ. أَثُمَّ إِذَا مَا وَقَعَ آمَنْتُمْ بِهِ. You want to believe in it then when it happens? أَثُمَّ. Then, that alif is the question. And ثُمَّ, then. أَثُمَّ إِذَا مَا وَقَعَ آمَنْتُمْ بِهِ. Then you want to believe. Like Fir'aun, when he was drowning, he says, now I believe in what Bani Israel believe in. آمنت بما آمنت به بنو إسرائيل. Then, what was the response? الآن وقد عصيت قبل. Now, after all these years of disobedience and arrogance, defiance, now you believe? It's too late. أثم إذا ما وقع. It occurred. وقع, like we read in Surah Al-Waqi'ah. Now, it's not necessarily referring to Akhirah here. This punishment or this kind of consequence is based on the promise that the Prophet is giving about this world. Although some suggest that it could also be about the hereafter, but it seems to be about this world. And similar to, and this is where the أَثُمَّ إِذَا مَا وَقَعَ آمَنْتُمْ بِهِ is similar to the situation where Fir'aun, when the water came on him and he was drowning, that's when he said, I believe. And then it was said, Al-Ana. Similarly here, ثُمَّ إِذَا مَا وَقَعَ آمَنْتُمْ بِهِ, and the same thing, الْآنَ وَقَدْ كُنْتُمْ بِهِ تَسْتَعْجِلُونَ. Now you believe, after you kept on saying, let it come, hastening it or asking for it to come quicker and challenging the Prophet. Now basically imagine it happening day, you're busy going about your daily life, night, you're asleep, not aware of it, completely heedless, and it happens. Are you going to believe then? What is it going to do for you then? You're saying, let it come. If it does come, what is that faith or belief going to help you at that point? How does it help you? So then he says, الآن وقد كنتم به تستعجلون ثم قيل للذين ظلموا ذوقوا عذاب الخلد هل تجزون إلا بما كنتم تكسبون. This ثم and this statement that is said could be referring to a reference to the fact that this is nothing compared to the Akhirah, and reference to Adab al-Khuld. Khuld means eternity. So then it is said to those who oppressed, ثُمَّ قِيلَ. قِيلَ, it is said. قِيلَ is what we call the kind of verb that has does not specify the subject. Okay, so the subject is unknown. qila. We don't know. In Arabic, if we say qala, it means he said. But if we say qila, we don't know who said, but it is said. I don't know the grammar term for it in English. In Arabic, we call it majhul al-fa'il. So the fa'il, the subject, is unknown, unspecified. Okay? It just says that it is said. Here it said, qila, it is said. Thumma qila. Now who said that? Perhaps the angels, perhaps the believers, perhaps people. It could be. This is the amazing way, part of this, when you put it in this format, qila. Perhaps people who witnessed what happened to them. ذوقوا عذاب الخلد. Let's say we are now speaking of certain people who lived at the time of the Prophet and oppressed him and his family, Bani Umayyah. What do we say? We are often, we remember them with la'an. In other words, live eternally away from the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And sometimes when you say la'an, some people say what? Bishbad. Or in Urdu, maybe they don't do it with this. Beshmar. Countless. Bishomar. Beshmar. Countless. Bishbad in Farsi is let it be more. Let it be more. So you say la'an and somebody says more. So qila. It could be them. It could be the people, the believers afterwards saying, they deserve that eternal dark consequence that they prepared for themselves. ثُمَّ قِيلَ لِلَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا. And it could be all of those. It could be the angels, it could be Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the believers at the time, and those who would come after them. All of them, this is referring to all of those saying, ذُوقُوا عَذَابَ الْخُلْدِ. And that eternal adab is why. هل تجزون إلا بما كنتم تكسبون. Are you being paid back? Jaza is a payback. Okay? Sometimes jaza is good. Jaza al-ihsan. Quran says هل جزاء الإحسان إلا الإحسان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان. Ihsan has a jaza of ihsan. You do good, and your recompense or payback is good. Goodness, beauty. Ihsan from husn. Husn is beauty. Hasan is beauty, beautiful. Yeah. So, هل جزاء الإحسان إلا الإحسان. That's one type of jaza. Here, the adab is their jaza. It is that punishment. It is that the kind of outcome or the kind of consequence that they don't like, they don't want. It is undesirable. That undesirable outcome that they are facing, and we refer to as adab. Adab is something that is painful, something that is basically undesirable. Is that from anything other than what they were earning or through? In fact, the ayah says, هَلْ تُجْزَوْنَ. Are you being paid except through what you were? هَلْ تُجْزَوْنَ إِلَّا بِمَا كُنْتُمْ تَكْسِبُونَ. With what you were earning. With what you were earning. I may have given this story before I come to the story. An ayah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Holy Quran, those who consume the wealth of the orphans, it is indeed them consuming fire. So what is the fire? The fire is that thing that they did. Bima kuntum taksibun. It is through that they're burned. That action itself, or that whatever it was that they did or consumed, itself is burning them. So what is the adab? Adab is through what they did itself. The story I shared is a poet, actually, a poem in Farsi that describes an imaginary situation. A guy sits and he wants to uh, have something to barbecue, let's say. His story is based on smoking something. You know, what do you call them? The hookah? Yeah, where they, but back then they didn't know it's haram. Now we know, so we'll use another story. So he wanted to barbecue something. So he says, go get me some fire starter from hellfire. He says to a servant, go get me some fire starter from the hellfire. So the guy goes to the hellfire and comes back, again, imaginary. He says, I couldn't find any fire starter. He said, how come? Hellfire, no fire starter. He says, everyone was burning with their own fire. هر که میسوخت ذاتش خود میسوخت. Their own fire. بما كنتم تكسبون هل تجزون إلا بما. That be is actually amazing. It's not that you're only being paid back because of what you were earning. ما كنتم تكسب. No, bima, through it. It actually, that the tool that is the catalyst in the equation is your own action. The fire starter is your own action. Walayadu billah, we seek refuge, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, from that. So this part is referring to the hereafter. The initial part and the wa'ad that the Prophet is giving the people is the dunya, before the akhirah. And again, the second ayah 56, ثم قيل للذين ظلموا, it is said to the oppressors, taste. Now this is gone. This short-term thing that you go and suffer in this dunya. Fatima al-Zahra, salamullah alayha. She says, people who disobey God and do not follow the teachings of the Prophet and his family. She says, us. It's important for us to understand this us. If you are following what we are telling you and staying away from what we, or the us, if you're not following us, if you're not listening to what we tell you and not staying away from what we tell you to stay away from, then you're not from us, she says. You're not from us. We're not related to the Prophet and his family. Not related in a blood relationship, rather to be their followers, to be amongst the Muslimin and the followers of Ahlul Bayt, the Shia, and so on. So then the man says, then that's it. It's hellfire. It's eternal punishment. She said, no. It's not necessarily that, not necessarily the eternal part. Sometimes we go through, and here I'm paraphrasing, she explained, and this is basically the essence of the explanation. Sometimes we go through difficulties in life to get purified. Okay, we've done something that deserves some sort of a payback or some suffering, so that we are purified. Sometimes that purification in difficulties in life is not enough. So one goes through difficulty in the time of death. That's another very tough one. That's why we should prepare for it. You know, there are books written, Manazil al-Akhirah, Shaykh Abbas al-Qummi writes about how to prepare for that time when we are departing this world, so that we have easier departure. And then sometimes that is not enough. Then one goes through tough times in Barzakh. Sometimes that is not enough, and they go through some tough times in Qiyamah, resurrection. And if that's not enough, we seek refuge to God from that, then one could be exposing themselves to some level or layer of hell. وَالْعَيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ. We have to go through the Sirat, yes? وَإِن مِّنكُمْ إِلَّا وَارِدُهَا. Everybody's going through it. The hellfire. And that Sirat, either we can go quick, no feeling of its heat, protected, or God forbid, some may end up suffering on that higher level. The higher level is the better level, essentially. And then eventually they would be, as believers, if they were believers, they would be with the shafa'ah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, who's Ahlul Bayt, and with the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they would be relieved from that. We don't want any of that. We cannot take Imam Ali alayhi salam in Dua Kumail. He said, I cannot withstand قليل من بلاء الدنيا وعقوباتها وما يجري فيها من المكاره. Makarih is jama' of makruh. Makruh is what people don't like. We don't like to have an accident. We don't like to have bruises and cuts and problems. We don't like to have a problem in our houses, in terms of, I don't know, a hurricane, a tree falling on my roof. That's not a very nice thing. And something like that happens and we start panicking and freaking out. And it's like, why? I cannot withstand some of makarih in this dunya. فَكَيْفَ احْتِمَالِ لِبَلَاءِ الْآخِرِ. How can we withstand or bear the bala of akhirah? So we should not be, we should prepare so that we are not facing that level of purification that one goes through, وَالْعَيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ, a layer of hell before they end up being saved. So then he says, وَيَسْتَنْبِئُونَكَ. This Naba, Surah Al-Naba. Surah Al-Naba is named after the term Naba. Naba is like news, and kind of news that's new, that is unexpected. So, and sometimes it is also referring to some very important news, or as they say in Arabic, khabar ajil. Khabar is news. Ajil is it's like latest updates. What do they call it? If something suddenly, like we have a war breakout. I'm not sure. Ahsan, that's what I'm looking for. Breaking news. Breaking news. Yeah. So suddenly something happened in the world and we have some breaking news. Everyone's okay. So that kind of naba. Okay. So that khabar ajil could be referred to as naba, that breaking news. So he says, وَيَسْتَنْبِئُونَكَ. They are asking you again, as in the news, أَحَقٌّ هُوَ. Now earlier, or in some ayat, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, يَسْأَلُونَكَ. They ask you. Here, they're saying, yes, he says, يَسْتَنْبِئُونَكَ. Okay? Because this is a nubu'ah. The Prophet is called Nabi because he brings nubu'ah. Nubu'ah is basically telling them of something that they have not seen. News, we are told about it, but it's happening somewhere else in the world. Yeah, nowadays it's followed with a lot of videos and so on. So someone might say, but it's no longer news because we can see it, in that sense. But a lot of these videos are fabricated nowadays too. So it brings us back to the same place. Nevertheless, يَسْتَنْبِئُونَكَ. They're asking you about something that they cannot see. You cannot show it to them, especially now that we're speaking of the hereafter. Now, some suggest that the يَسْتَنْبِئُونَكَ أَحَقٌّ هُوَ about the adab. Or which adab? About adab of dunya. It could be, this particular one could be about adab al-akhirah. Here when he says, ذُوقُوا عَذَابَ الْخُلْدِ. Adab al-khuld is adab of akhirah, eternity. Khuld is eternity. Okay? So adab al-khuld is the akhirah, not this dunya. Nothing is dunya last. Even tough times. We go through them. You know, one day we have a tough day. The next day you have a beautiful day. It could be a day as in a 24-hour, or it could be a period. You have a tough week, tough month. Often I tell the youth, tough few years of studying and you have easier several years of good career and good lifestyle. And if you waste your time in those few years, then you end up suffering the rest of your life, however long it may be. So we go through cycles, tough and easy, tough and easy. This is dunya. Akhirah is not like that. It's adab al-khuld. Every time their skins burn, what happens? They're replaced. It's all renewed. Because they're not meant to just, it's not meant to just finish. They say, Ya Malik, oh Malik, tell your Lord, please let us just finish. We want to be done completely, no longer. I don't want to, the one in that situation would want to never would wish they never had existed. Ya laytaha kanat al-qadiya. They wish they never were resurrected to eternity. We want eternity, and yet there they don't want that. Insan in this world tries their best to live eternally. Always trying to stay younger, use all sorts of medicines and vitamins and I don't know, multivitamins and supplements and whatever else. And the share of that Imam Hadi alayhi salam used in the gathering of Mutawakkil, أين الوجوه التي كانت منعمة, putting all sorts of creams on their faces, keeping it all fresh. Nowadays, what, collagen or whatever. So all of these things. And I mean, this is how we want in dunya. But we know this dunya does not last anyway. Now, all of a sudden, we come to eternity, the real eternity. Wildanun mukhalladun. Youth, always young. Children, always children. You love children at that age, cute age, running around, Baba, beautiful, Maybe some people might think it's not so beautiful, what are you saying? But it is generally for parents, it's a lovely thing. And imagine you have wildanun mukhalladun. This is the eternity. In that eternity, some would say, I don't want this. I would want death to be the end. Ya laytaha kanat al-qadi. This is because of the khuld. Therefore, when they're asking after adab al-khuld, وَيَسْتَنْبِئُونَكَ, something that they have not seen about the future, that you have brought news. He is a bearer of news, the Prophet ﷺ. Good news and warnings, yeah? The warnings about what could happen and the akhirah, and the good news that there are rewards for those who are patient and do good and so on. So here they say, أَحَقٌّ هُوَ, is it really true? About the akhirah perhaps, about the recompense in akhirah, or it could be also about the something happening here as well. Although the first makes more sense or fits more. قُلْ إِي وَرَبِّي إِنَّهُ لَحَقٌّ. There is so much emphasis here. E is a way of saying yes. However, it comes with a little bit of emphasis. The types of letters used in it. Exactly. The types of letters used in it are used for someone who is giving directly quick answer. is when you want to start speaking in Arabic or in some other, you might make a sound, sound, yeah? Where does it start? From the throat, yeah? That, okay, you want to say, and that's why the questioning when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in Arabic, when you want to question, Arabic, by the way, has a lot of wisdom in the way it's developed. And this is why, I mean, generally speaking, we believe, and a lot of our scholars, and we have reference to it in the hadith, that the teachers were Anbiya. The teachers of human beings were always prophets, taught humans and always brought them to the next level. And so the wisdom in languages in general, and especially in the language that has been chosen to be the language of the final message of God, the Arabic, there's a lot of wisdom in how it developed. So even what letter to use for certain things or what word is based on what would make most sense. So when you want to speak and get people's attention, you go, yeah. So that sound, the hamza sound, is what is used also for which is question, because you want to get some attention and you pause a question. That's what is referred to. You pause a question with that the hamza itself. In Arabic, all you need is the hamza. Then ahaqqun huwa. So here, qul say again the same with also the mad in that manner. So it's emphasized itself, and then I swear by my Lord, wa Rabbi. It is basically double emphasis here. Qasam. Innahu. What is innahu? Inna, surely. Surely it is. Innahu. Lahaqqun. Lam is for what? Lam is for also emphasis, ta'keed. He could have said, قل إنه حق. قل وربي إنه لحق. Subhanallah. So much emphasis, one after the other. To say, don't doubt it. Don't ask this question. أحق هو? Is it true? وربي إنه لحق. It could have been said, it could have been نعم. قل نعم. That's it. That نعم is answering. But وربي إنه لحق. Even saying حق again is an emphasis. So in other words, we have 5 emphases here. Yeah? وربي إنه لا حق. Because saying the حق again, if he said إنه, it's enough. That to say the haq again, it itself, to bring up in the answer to, if somebody gives you a yes and no answer, you say yes or you say no. But what if you say yes, it is? Okay? Or yes, I ate. Did you eat breakfast? Yes, I ate. Now the eating again is further emphasis. Okay. What if I said, yes, I did? Is enough, yeah? Yes is enough. I did is enough. Yes, I ate. You bring the verb again, it's further emphasis. So here we have so much emphasis. وَمَا أَنْتُمْ بِمُعْجِزِينَ. And you cannot. Mu'jiz is, and in fact, mu'jiza is called mu'jiza. Why? Because it's called mu'jiza or miracle. It's because ajaza, people are unable to do it. Okay. وَمَا أَنْتُمْ, I don't really like the translation here. I'm reading the translation. don't know who it is. It says, and you will not escape. Very far. I mean, very, no, it doesn't give much. I don't know. Do you have another translation there? Is that another? I like to see what they normally, 53, the end of 53. He cannot escape. Yeah, no.
Cause failure.
Ahsan, that's a better one. You cannot cause failure. In other words, you cannot stop it, okay? Prevent it. But why? Because this is the amazing thing. Again, translate, and you're not getting the full meaning. The ajz is the inability, okay? Mu'jiza is called mu'jiza because people are unable to do it. General people, ajazu, they cannot do it. The Prophet Isa alayhi salam, Jesus peace be upon him, he touches the blind and they are able to see. Can anyone else do that? No. He touches the dead and with the will of God, they come back to life. Can anyone else do that? No. Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this surah and other surahs, he says to people, come make a chapter like it. Not the full thing, not 10 surahs. Huh? The surah 10, one surah like it. Even short surah. They cannot. Ajz. Okay, so that. Mu'jizeen is to make one unable, to prevent but not just prevent, to make him unable to do it, make him ya'jazu. Okay, so you cannot make God unable. You cannot disable God, can you? Can anyone disable God? This is literally the term used to make some sense to them. وَمَا أَنْتُمْ بِمُعْجِزِينَ. In other words, you cannot stop God and disable him from what he has promised. He promised that this will happen, it will happen. You cannot stop it. There's no way for you to prevent it and stop it because you cannot disable Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَوْ أَنَّ لِكُلِّ نَفْسٍ ظَلَمَتْ مَا فِي الْأَرْضِ. Now we spoke about mu'jizeen. Amazing. You cannot stop it. You cannot prevent it. You cannot stop it. You cannot disable it because you can't disable God's will. There's no way. Then the next ayah gives us a reminder of how significant it would be at that point for people to try and stop it. Because we would love to stop it at that point. If we did not prepare for it and the punishment came, you would love to stop it, yes? But we cannot stop it. And then he says, not only you. وَلَوْ أَنَّ لِكُلِّ نَفْسٍ ظَلَمَتْ. If everybody in this world, every single person who oppressed, ظلمت, owned مَا فِي الْأَرْضِ, everything on earth. So every individual owned everything on earth, which is not possible because one can own everything, the next cannot own anything. But even if that was the case, even if every soul, وَلَوْ أَنَّ لِكُلِّ نَفْسٍ ظَلَمَتْ, every oppressive individual owned everything on earth, they would easily give it to stop that punishment. لَافْتَدَتْ بِهِ. Fida is when you sacrifice something to prevent something else. Yafdi is sometimes, for example, we say, okay, I have to give up an arm for the sake of my life. Let it be. Yeah. I have to give up some wealth for the sake of health, which is normally what people do. Unfortunately, sometimes ignorantly we give up our health for the sake of our wealth, And then when we realize what we're doing, we start reversing it, and sometimes it's too late. We have to give so much more to get back the health that we risked or lost, and it would be often too late. So we give, leftadat, fida, let the entire house go. An accident happens, and you look, okay, the car is gone, but okay, children, everyone's healthy, everyone's good, nobody's hurt. In Arabic, they say hadith, it's iron, it's metal, it's nothing. Fida. Often, I mean, even if you get a scratch on a car, you get upset, yeah? Normally, a small scratch on a car, especially a brand new car, somebody gets a brand new car, they're so protective of it. No, nobody, make sure, nobody, even where you park it sometimes, so nobody ends up opening their door and denting or scratching your car and all of that. And then all of a sudden, you say, let that car go. It's my life, my health. Yeah. Fida. He says, even if a person, every one of those oppressive people, even if they owned everything on earth, ما في الأرض لافتدت به, they would give it. Would it help at that point? You can give all you want. It would not. ما أغنى عني مالية. My wealth is not going to do anything for me. يوم لا ينفع مال ولا بنون. Neither your wealth nor your children, nothing. If we did things, if we took care of our children, we used our wealth for the sake of God, that is not wealth, that's amal. That's a good deed. If you spend money for the sake of God, that action is a good deed. It's not the money that's helping, it's that action. Yeah, it's the amal. If you raise good children, that is a good amal. That is what's benefiting us. So he says, وَأَسَرُّ النَّدَامَةَ لَمَّا رَأَوُا الْعَذَابِ. This is an amazing part. This part, perhaps, the وَلَوْ أَنَّ لِكُلِّ نَفْسٍ, or even the يَسْتَنْبِئُونَكَ could have some reference to what happens here, because of this particular part where he says وَأَسَرُّ النَّدَامَةَ لَمَّا رَأَوُا الْعَذَابِ. Although some say even that أَسَرُّ النَّدَامَةَ refers to them in the hereafter, and they give an explanation. I'll explain inshallah. So أَسَرُّ is to keep something in secret, to hide something. Sir is secret. Okay. أَسَرُّ is to make something hidden, secret. Okay. So وَأَسَرُّ النَّدَامَةَ, they hide their regret. And they will, no, this is completely, the translation here is completely off. It's the opposite. It says, and they will manifest regret. Is that what? Confide is good. Yes, confide is good. What do you have? I'm always interested to see what they put. So ayah 54.
Their judgment to relieve oneself of one's injustice, one would gladly spend the wealth of the whole earth if it were possible. Seeing the torment, one will try to hide his regret.
Yes. Here it's, I don't know who this one is. Yeah. This particular one is actually completely the opposite. First of all, on the day of judgment is not necessarily correct. See, this is liberty from the in the brackets in the quote. Okay, so he is putting the tafseer in of what he believes it is. Okay, so the ayah doesn't say on the day of judgment. It says, and if for every وَلَوْ أَنَّ لِكُلِّ نَفْسٍ ظَلَمَتْ. Okay, then وَأَسَرُّ النَّدَامَةَ, for some reason this particular one says, and they will manifest regret لما رأوا العذاب, when they see the chastisement, which is not necessarily manifest, is to show, to display. Is that correct, or am I misunderstanding? Sorry. Secret. Yes, so this manifest is, to me, is the opposite of the meaning. Yes, so for some reason, I don't know why they have. So this is you have one said confined, one said hide. This, for some reason, says manifest. In any case, there is a way of saying that it's in their face, asarru, but that is surur, that is referring to happiness. So to me, it's complete misunderstanding of it. In any case, وَأَسَرُّ النَّدَامَةَ, they hide their regret. Why do they hide their regret? In this world, they don't want to be humiliated. You know, if sometimes we go through this often in life. You don't want to share what happened, especially when people warned you. The parents warn, don't do this. You will suffer the consequences. Be careful. And then we don't listen, and then we get in trouble. You don't want to say it all. Okay? And even when you say it, your face is down. So you're kind of hiding your regret. You say it, but you know, oftentimes our arrogance, our ego would not allow us to say, okay, I shouldn't have done it. You know, I'm regretful. So this is what generally people do when they're regretful. They don't share it because of their arrogance. They would not share their regret. وَأَسَرُّ النَّدَامَةَ, when they see the punishment. So when it comes, you will be regretful. That is a fact. Everybody who did not prepare for that time would be regretful, but they will hide it. Another thing is, if we look at it as the hereafter, as the hereafter, some, in fact, one of the famous scholars, Sunni scholars, who gives the explanation on it being for the hereafter, he says, Sha'rawi, his name is, he says that this is because they cannot display on their face, they cannot display that regret. It's physically impossible for somebody who's burning in hell to display regret. That is his explanation. So even if we take it to be that position of hell and them seeing the punishment in hell, that it's basically it's so fast, the burning process and the pain that they're going through, that they physically cannot display their emotions of regret or, you know, sadness or whatever. It's just the pain of the situation. There's not much you could express. So that's his take on it, and that's assuming that it is for the referring to the adab of the hereafter. Nevertheless, it could be about.
This verse says when they see it.
Yeah,
It's not really when they are experiencing the punishment.
yeah, that's true. That is true, Ahsant. Yeah, that's a good point. So when they see it is not when you're living in it. So when they see it coming, they're regretful, but they don't want to show it. That is what to me, what it seems it's referring to when something worldly, you know, the worldly consequences, when they come, oftentimes, yes, they are sudden, but it's not like being in hell. It's that, and yes, even if they see the hellfire, it's not when they're in it that they are not able to physically show the regret. They see it first, and then they face the actual punishment. So yes, at that position, that physical inability to display regret does not make much sense. Wallahu a'lam. That's so وَأَسَرُّ النَّدَامَةَ لَمَّا رَأَوُا الْعَذَابَ. And that's also, I mean, all of this, remember, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the all merciful. We have to keep that in mind. He is Arhamur Rahim. There's no limits to his mercy. All of this is because of his mercy. He puts it in different ways to say, well, this is gonna happen. It's the consequences of your own actions. And it's gonna happen. And so then he describes the scene so much that you feel like I can imagine this. He said he even describes certain emotions that happen in that at that position, in that time, at that time. In that position, you would have regret, and often people would hide their regret. So making sense to everybody, creating that scene and scenario in a way that they could imagine it, they could live it before it happens. Why? Because of His mercy, so that they don't put themselves in that position. They don't expose themselves to the consequences of their actions. So he says, وَأَسَرُّوا النَّدَامَةَ وَلَمَّا رَأَوُا الْعَذَابَ. But then it won't help. Nadam, regret, at that point does not help. I wish I did not. So, can it change anything? وَأَسَرُّوا النَّدَامَةَ لَمَّا رَأَوُا الْعَذَابَ وَقُضِيَ بَيْنَهُمْ بِالْقِسْطِ وَهُمْ لَا يُظْلَمُونَ. Very important. What happened is absolute justice. And قُضِيَ بَيْنَهُمْ. Now, this is speaking about الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا. Yes? وَلَوْ أَنَّ لِكُلِّ نَفْسٍ ظَلَمَتْ. Okay, now all the ظالمين, they would try and give ransom everything on earth if they had it to stop the punishment. They would regret when they see the punishment, they would hide it. All of that. Now it's speaking of who? ظالمين. And then it says وَقُضِيَ بَيْنَهُمْ. Between them. It's not speaking of the good and the bad. Yeah. Sometimes in Quran we have the good and the bad and qada between them. Okay, somebody is a murderer, another is a victim, was murdered. Somebody is usurped the rights of the other. He took the property, this one lost their property. Whatever it is that you have the good and the bad. Qada between them is understandable. And there's qist, justice, absolute justice, no questions. But now we're speaking of ظالمين. And yet the ayah says, وَقُضِيَ بَيْنَهُمْ بِالْقِسْطِ. Now some may say, well, this is referring to, now it comes back to generally, after they witnessed the worldly thing and they regret it, then there is the qada, the day of judgment. And when the day of judgment happens, قُضِيَ بَيْنَهُمْ refers to بَيْنَ all, between all. It's judged between all, the good and the bad. So this is no longer the hum is no longer referring to, that pronoun is no longer referring to ظالمين. It's referring to all. That is one way of seeing it. Another way, which makes perfect sense, I'm not nullifying the other one, but this makes perfect sense as well, is to say that even between the ظالمين, if somebody is a sinner, you have people in a jail, for example, okay? Criminals, different levels, some murderers, some thieves, some, I don't know, fraud, whatever, okay? Different levels, some drunk drivers, all of them put together, yeah? And now they're criminals. Let's say somehow we have a group of people all given even life sentence, okay? They're horrible. But if they oppress each other and if there's an oppression between them, would you not judge between them justly? You would still judge between them justly. Even the prison guards or the government would, even in this world, would still say there are rights and there's justice. You cannot do this, you cannot do that. This guy did more, this guy did that less, all of these things. So that is still applicable. And actually that is Aynul Adl. This is the real justice of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That he doesn't just categorize two categories. You go to heaven, you go to hell. No, even those who face their consequences, the consequences of their actions and now are in hell, even then the qada is completely just. وهم لا يظلمون. The qada is just, and then they are not oppressed. Could be further emphasis, or it could be something beyond that, and that's what we would like to think. The balagha of the Quran is that there's no repetition. Okay, God doesn't repeat himself. وَقُضِيَ بَيْنَهُمْ بِالْقِسْطِ وَهُمْ لَا يُظْلَمُونَ. Yes, you could say that repetition sometimes is because of emphasis, to emphasize and confirm that this is the fact. There's no way there would be injustice. And so the qada between them happened justly, and there shall be no injustice. Yes. Sure.
The Tafseer here says that some commentators have translated it as Tafseer, while the others say that this word actually has opposite meanings. It means to conceal as well as to express and declare.
Yeah.
And they're using the word express the manifest on that day. We will not be able to conceal everything really.
Yeah, so there is that suggestion. The immediate meaning of asarru is the conceal, and the secondary meaning is, and again, it's because of the often it's when you are referring to happiness, is that masroor. When you're giving that, often then it's referring to it being often. No more concealment, because it's not possible. You know, when you're happy, it's not very possible. When you're regretful, you can't see hide, but when you're happy, so to say that would be the secondary meaning, and to take the secondary meaning when it would not give, unless we just look at it as the day of judgment.
It's clear that on the day of judgment, everything will be manifest.
Yeah, but this is assuming that this is only about the day of judgment. Which, to start with, this whose work is that?
This is the announcement.
Yeah. So I mean, that's one way of looking at it. That's not. Our Mufassirin have again that we have differences between our Mufassirin, but generally speaking, they've looked at this ayah as the initial reaction of the initial consequence here, and the second, the akhirah, being an option as well, a possibility, not necessarily the only. So this ayah is not only referring to akhirah. If it is referring to the akhirah, the hereafter, it is a second option. The first option is the dunya. Again, if we go back to the beginning of this whole conversation, it all started with what? With them asking for this here. Okay, they're asking for. Okay, you keep telling us there are consequences to our actions, and previous nations suffered. You are exposing yourself to suffer, and then one ayah says, وَإِمَّا نُرِيَنَّكَ بَعْضَ الَّذِينَ عَيْدُهُمْ. Some of what we are promising them, we may show you. أَوْ نَتَوَفَّيَنَّكَ, or it could happen after you die. In fact, there is a very important conversation here that actually I remember, and that is about the fact that the Ummah of Rasulullah is normally referred to as Al-Ummah Al-Marhuma, the Ummah that has received a special mercy. from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why? Because previous nations, whenever they defied and denied and disobeyed their prophets, eventually a punishment came and wiped them out. No? The flood and whatever else, whether it be the people of Nuh, people of Hud, people of Saleh, people of Lut. We have all these examples given in the Quran, but the Ummah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam did not face that. Yeah. So they, some say, well, this does not refer to any of these wa'id is not for dunya because of Ummah of Rasulullah. And that is very, very wrong. Because there won't be a collective wiping out for all. You know, that like it happened in for previous nations. But there would be some consequences. And the Prophet ﷺ referred to those. And the Ahlul Bayt referred to them, Fatima salamullah alayha referred to them, the fact that this ummah will face consequences, and even the hadith that if you don't do Amr bil Ma'ruf and Nahi al Munkar, then God would allow the worst of the people, the evil ones, to have authority over you, and then you will pray and your prayers will not be answered. All of these situations are consequences, worldly consequences. This is wa'id that happened. And this ayah, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, ayah 46, yes, He says, وَإِمَّا نُرِيَنَّكَ بَعْضَ الَّذِينَ عِدُهُمْ. Some of what we are promising them, we will show you, Ya Rasulullah. Okay? And then some, it may not happen, or أَوْ نَتَوَفَّيَنَّكَ, or it could be that you die. Okay, we take you to us, we take your soul. In other words, after the death of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it occurred. It will occur afterwards. Imam Hussein alayhi salam on the day of Ashura, he says that these people will suffer. He promised that they will suffer. They will not witness rain for a while. They would suffer. They would have. So all of these things are consequences, you know, worldly consequences. And often when it comes in this world, initially in this world, and this is again, it's a reminder and it's a response about them questioning those wa'id. Okay, you keep saying it, you know, something's gonna happen. Where is it? Where? You keep giving us examples of previous nations. Where is it? So he's saying to them, it would happen, and when it happens, you will be either asleep or busy during the day, running around and, you know, doing your daily things. And would you be ready for it? Then he says, when it comes, you would give everything that you have to prevent it. And then, so the وَأَسَرُّ النَّدَامَ here is actually to draw a picture of how they would be here in facing the others as they face their one of them. In fact, one of the things that did happen, and we have a hadith about that, was Badr. After the battle of Badr, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam spoke to the mushrikeen of Quraysh, even the ones who had died, okay, and asked them about the promise of God. So this is part of the promise of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that you will suffer this, the humiliation, and some of them were killed in the way that they were killed and faced their consequences and so on. So that, wallahu a'lam, again, this is, these are possible tafsir, and we cannot say that this is it and nothing else. But wallahu a'lam, it's more likely to be saying they hide the regret, because it's exactly, yeah, in the hereafter it could be used as the other, or another possibility. That's a good point you just brought up. Another possibility is the vagueness is because of the two possibilities. You know, Quran sometimes does have that. For instance, we have the tafsir of the وَيُطْعِمُونَ الطَّعَامَ عَلَى حُبِّهِ. Okay, there are four possibilities of the ha. حُبِّهِ. What is the ha referring to? They feed the food because of their love for him or it. He could be referring حُبُّ الطَّعَامِ. Despite loving food, they give it. Okay, because or حُبِّهِ, meaning حُبِّ اللَّهِ, the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Or حُبِّهِ, meaning حُبُّ الْإِطْعَامِ, to love feeding, because they love feeding. They know how significant feeding is. They know that on the day of judgment, they say, وَلَمْ نَكُنْ نُطْعِمُ الْمِسْكِينَ. It'am is very important. Those who depart this world and they face the day of judgment, they wish they had fed. Feeding the people, feeding especially the needy, is very, very rewarding. So حُبِّهِ meaning حُبُّ الإطعام, or حُبِّهِ meaning the love of the person they are feeding. So then some of our mufassirin, Atma Makarim, for example, says the fifth option is all of the above. All the options. And that's why God did not say على حب المطعم أو على حب الإطعام or على حب الله or على حب الطعام. He didn't say any of this. He says على حبه. In other words, it could be all of those. So that could also be another way of looking at this. Asarru, meaning in reference to dunya, they would hide it. In reference to akhirah, they would manifest it. Wallahu a'lam. وهم لا يظلمون. Yes.
Question now,
Bismillah.
when it comes to learning,
Yeah.
you either learn by talking, somebody can listen,
Mhm.
but then if you show and you see, then there's a whole level you go up to.
Mhm.
So if we had got a sneak peek of hell,
Uh,
we would have seen it.
Yes, awesome.
Our level of conviction be different.
Different, yeah. So the question is, if we see certain things, we will be convinced. So if somehow God made us able to see the hellfire, wouldn't that help us be fully convinced? And there are a couple of things to say about this. One is that if you see it, then there's no respite. There's no chance, no more chances. There's a reference to that in the Quran. That if you were to be given the ayah, the clear sign that there's no more doubt about it, then there's no more chances. So the fact that he didn't exactly, yeah. So we have some reference about that in the Holy Quran. And the other one is that with knowledge, you could see it. If you have certain, a level of knowledge that has certainty in it, yaqeen, you would see it. And we also have reference in the Quran about that. كَلَّا لَوْ تَعْلَمُونَ عِلْمَ الْيَقِينِ لَتَرَوُنَّ الْجَحِيمِ. If you had ilm al-yaqeen, that certainty in knowledge, you would see the hellfire. Then we have reference in the ahadith of Ahlul Bayt that they see it. Okay, they see the bad deeds as the actual consequence of it. They see the good deed as the actual beauty and reward of it, and they see the bad deeds as the actual consequence of it. Imagine one who is backbiting, wal-'ayadhu billah, seeing that now they're dripping blood from their mouth because they bit off a chunk of the flesh of someone else. Imagine that was to happen. Okay, for Ahlul Bayt, this is how they see it. The Prophet ﷺ heard a lady slandering and backbiting and so on. He said, she just broke her fast, and it's like the flesh and blood is in your mouth. He sees it in that way. Okay, we don't see it clearly in that manner because we don't have ilm yaqeen. But at the same time, at that point, if somebody gets to that kind of ilm, the more ilm, the more responsibility. The Samiri had knowledge. He could see things that people could not see. Basurtu, Quran says, in the words of Samiri, I saw what people could not see. And so I took the footsteps or, the remnants of the footsteps of the angel. قَبَضْتُ قَبْضَةً مِنْ أَثَرِ الرَّسُولِ, from where the Rasul just stepped. I took a bunch of sand or whatever. Okay, so he had that level of knowledge. As a result, he was able to misguide at that level. As a result, he became amongst the worst of his time. And Imam Ali alayhi salam says to one of the people at the time that you are like the Samiri for this ummah. Have knowledge, but did not use it in the right way and misguided more than you actually guided. So not being able to fully see it is a blessing in disguise, I guess. Allah. I think I know we started late, but I don't know. I don't want to take much of your time. Any other questions? So, yes, Ahsan. So you can go ahead. So, inshallah, we'll continue next session with from ayah 45. Ala inna lillahi. 55. Ahsan. 55. We'll continue. And next week, we will have a special program for Mother's Day. And there will be a game. I'm not sure in terms of the tafsir, if we would have it shorter. We'll have a shorter tafsir session, and then we'll have also a game, an educational game, inshallah. And that way we can also test our knowledge or what we are learning, inshallah, and make it a little more fun for the children, inshallah. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us the opportunity to continue learning and reflecting on the ayat of the Holy Quran, implementing them, and especially making that environment for our children to also learn the ayat and reflect on the ayat of the Holy Quran. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu wa sallam ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa alihi tayyibin at-tahirin. Allah.